I'm actually very proud of our onboarding program to date. It took a while for us to get here, but it is a pretty robust program. We have different versions of onboarding, again, depending on the segments. For the scale segment, again, these are like startups and SMBs, so maybe they're, you know, the full scope of their deployment is like maybe 200 employees. And so their onboarding plan is pretty pared down versus my enterprise segment, like their onboarding plan has like 55 steps as an example. But what we've done is we've created an onboarding report card, and it is a true scorecard that's available. We use Gainsight in our CRM for every customer in onboarding. And then it kind of shows you how they're performing against those core metrics during onboarding in that report card. And then the goal is to have a score of 80% by day 90. So we like say 80 by 90, which is like, did they score 80 out of 100 at minimum by day 90? Some onboarding will take longer than that, especially at the enterprise segment. So there's definitely grace there, but it's a pretty objective measure. Initially, when we were driving onboarding, we thought certain metrics are important. So we were like, hey, we need them to like, you know, have this many monthly active members, or we need them to set up this many templates. And it was more of a hunch on like what we think are the indicators of great onboarding. But over time, Notion got more resources, we grew, we had a data science team. And I posed this question to my data science team. I said, hey, we measure all these things of onboarding. Like, are these the right things to be measuring? Is there some other metric that maybe is a better indicator of onboarding? And they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a massive regression analysis, and we're going to look at all of the customers who expanded or retained, had really healthy outcomes. What did they look like 12 months prior to drive to those outcomes 12 months later? And they came back to me with the analysis, and they were like, there's a high degree of correlation on these 7 metrics. If these 7 things happen in the first 90 days, it's almost a 1-to-1 correlation that they will retain or expand. It was things like, how many integrations did they set up? Duh, that's great. Like, it's a very sticky metric. But we were looking at things like, are they using comments? Are they commenting and collaborating? And they're like, that doesn't matter. Don't even pay attention to comments. Comments has no correlation with retention. I was like, okay, good to know. And so we were able to pare it down to those 7, and those 7 make up our onboarding report card to date. And so it's actually a really exciting thing because I can say, hey, like if we hit these 7, we know with a very high degree of correlation that likely going to perform well. So we're driving the right inputs very early. And that's been a really cool recent development.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story. And it makes me realize too, I got to get my act together around Doc a little bit better too, because we just have a lot of theories around like what we need to do in the first early days. And I guess that's just kind of where we're at in the stage of company. But like, I really want to get more scientific about it. Okay, just like do these 3 things, and then they ultimately will be happy, set on the success and retain. So yeah. I
mean, it took us like 3 years to get there, and you have to have enough customers to like be able to gain trends from that. So yeah, I think, you know, every company starts the way that we've started.
Yeah. And it sounds like, I mean, you definitely in your answer, like, you know, onboarding is really important to get the renewal eventually. But I'm curious, like, what else do you do sort of between, you know, onboarding and renewal to make sure that, you know, they're going to renew and hopefully expand. And like, you know, for those big renewal moments, like what does it sort of look like post onboarding as you're sort of working with these customers and driving towards that eventual renewal?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of the kind of more traditional, like tops down engagements that you would imagine, like QBRs or roadmap sessions or, you know, partnership kind of reviews. But it's a little bit of the bottoms up as well. So I would say, like, first things first is like data is king and data tells the story. So we're extremely data centric in everything that we do. We have very robust health scores. We have lots of things that we measure, and they're updated daily. So we're able to see fluctuations in any of those changes and catch them early. Even things like, did they add a bunch of seats overnight? Did they remove a bunch of seats overnight? Which might not change the health score immediately, but it's also like, you know, a big change in the account. And I get reports on this every week. The team can see all of this in their dashboard. So I would say, like, the data kind of drives some of the engagements that we might pick and choose to do versus other ones we might not do them. So from the tops down perspective, we are running like regular partnership syncs. You know, we want to come to the table with our stakeholders. What are you seeing? What's the sentiment like? This is what we've heard from you, this is what we're building. And then these are like the success stories. A big part of the voice of the customer program falls on my team. And we do a lot of that kind of success story or like use case curation. And then we're able to kind of collate those stories and bring that back to our stakeholders. And so we can say things like, hey, we know for a fact that your engineering team is like building their runbooks in Notion. And they told us that, they love how snappy it is. And, they stopped using Confluence as much, as an example. So we're able to bring all of those stories back through these more like regular cadences of QBRs and partnership syncs. Come to the table discussions, but we are also constantly running education and enablement to even end users. Notion has a learning curve. It's also not like one and done. It's not like we onboarded you and then you're off to the races forever. Like there's constant education that's required. So we will do regular trainings. We will do use case, we call them use case development sessions, where we help co-create use cases, build those use cases. Depending on how big the customer is, we might go on site and like train all their new hires once a quarter because they're hiring quickly. So there's a lot of education enablement. And then the last thing I'll say is like the data-based bottoms up work is also really important motion, which is like if we see health scores dropping, if we see risk, then we will almost like prospect into that account or continue to like multi-thread into that account to figure out what's going on and who are those influencers that we need to kind of re-enable and get them excited about Notion. Because if we can convert this one influencer, they probably can impact like 10 or 20 other users to drive the overall usage up. So we do quite a bit of like bottoms up enablement and engagement as well. And then like internally as a team, obviously we're still pretty lean. And so we're just sharing learnings constantly, the playbooks that we're building. And we do run monthly risk review, monthly like red account meetings with leadership. So we're proactively surfacing any risk that we see on a monthly basis. And then we also have like our action plans against those risk accounts.